Here's the big question. Is it worth getting a battery to go with your solar panels? It is such a complex question. So many factors to take into account, like value for money, carbon footprint, human impact, never mind the cost of the battery itself. In this video, I'll walk you through the basic information you need on batteries. But of course, there's far more to it than that. So I'll make separate videos about the different options your providers can give you and the climate concerns. So the first question is, do you actually need a battery? There are three ways to use the solar energy you produce. You take what you need as it's produced. Anything produced beyond that goes back to the grid as a gift from the goodness of your heart. Secondly, you can use what you need as it's produced, then you can sell any excess back to the grid. And thirdly, you can use what you need as it's produced, plus you can store any excess for use when the sun isn't around. To decide which one to go for, take into account the variability of your energy usage. For example, if you work from home, so you need heating 24/7, you're using computers and the internet consistently, and you're boiling the kettle on a regular basis, then you'll use a lot more of the energy as it's produced. If you're out most of the day, clearly a lot of it's going to go to the grid. So you might want to put in a battery to make sure you get the benefit when you're at home. If you live in an area that has regular power cuts, then that's an added incentive for a battery. So you can use what you've generated, but I'll say a little bit more about that in a bit. If you decide to go ahead, the first question is the size of battery you need. You want a battery big enough to store the excess electricity you generate, but this isn't an occasion where it's worth getting a bit extra just in case. If you can't fill it, it's not worth it. In order to work this out, you need to know the size of your solar panel system. You'll have been given this in terms of kilowatt peak, that's kWp. This describes the maximum amount of power your solar panels can generate in ideal conditions. As a very rough rule of thumb, the system will typically generate double its size. For example, a standard 4 kilowatt peak system could generate around 8 kilowatt hours of electricity in a day. So the largest capacity battery you'd want would be 8 kilowatt hours, because your system can't produce more than that, even on the best of days. Then consider how much energy you use each day. You should be able to work this out from your energy bills or from the smart meter if you've got one. What you're looking for is a battery that can store as much as you use in a day. And don't forget to factor in your lifestyle. If you work at home and use most of the energy produced, then a smaller battery might work just as well. So what is it you need to get? If you're anything like me, you'll be focused on the battery itself. After all, that's what we're talking about. In fact, you need both the battery that stores the energy and an inverter. Now, you can't miss the inverter out because the power produced by the panels is direct current electricity, that's DC. And the grid and appliances run on alternating current, which is AC. Unless DC is converted to AC, you won't be able to use the energy anyway. If you're just going to use what you can and pass the rest back to the grid, you can have a string inverter or a micro inverter on each panel. I'll put a link to a video with more about all of this here. To allow you to store energy in a battery, you need a hybrid converter. It is a bit more expensive, but don't dismiss it immediately. Give some thought to what your future needs might be. We've come up against that. We could have done with a hybrid converter, and now we're going to have to make changes. So think it through. If you want the option to access power in your battery or your panels in the event of a power cut, then you need to include a relay switch. Now, generally this is included in a hybrid inverter, but it's worth checking it out first. Your system needs to be set up properly for this, so mention it whenever you're asking for a quote so you know everything's included. It's there because when a power cut takes place, all the electricity is turned off to protect the workers putting it right. So your system needs to be switched off from the grid, then switched on to serve just the house. If this doesn't happen, those poor electricity workers will get a sudden and very dangerous shock. Now, one thing to consider is if you have an electric car, because you might be able to do biodirectional charging. This means you can use your car as your battery. Just as it can pull energy from the grid to take you places, some cars are also set up to discharge it back into the grid or into your home. So it may be that you already have a perfectly good battery sitting outside your house. What you need for that is an EV charger, a car that's compatible, and the right biodirectional converter plus software to enable the technology. We were very keen on having this. We had the surveys, people coming down, take a look at it all, but it turned out we couldn't have it because there's a lamppost outside the house, something to do with earthing. But it's definitely worth you looking into if you've got an EV. Of course, costs are always an important measure. I can't tell you what it's going to be because the cost will vary according to your needs, your preferred battery and the provider. The cheapest seem to start at around £1,500, but can be as much as £10,000, although on average you pay around £5,000 for a standard battery system. And do remember, installation's got to be on top of the cost of the battery and in the inverter. At the moment, in 2025, you won't encounter VAT in costs for batteries. But be aware, this is due to change in 2027 when VAT of 20% will go on to batteries as the plans stand now. In terms of longevity, the solar panel should be effective for about 25 years. A battery, however, has a shorter life, anything from 10 to 15 years. So be prepared to renew your battery within the lifetime of your panels. Now, with all this work on our houses, it's always a challenge to find a good provider. I'd encourage you to get at least 3 quotes. Now, in the past, we were all used to getting regular calls from double glazing salespeople, weren't we? That's now shifted to solar, so there should be no problem getting different quotes. I'd also recommend talking to people you know who've installed a battery. How did they find the installation? How well's the system working now? And it's also useful to look to smaller local providers. They won't always have the same economies of scale, but they are local if you have problems, and they have much more investment in having a happy local community, so they don't want any negative stories going round out there. Remember, salespeople want to give us what we're looking for, so it's always a good idea to be informed enough so you can spot when the promise is going over the top. If you have any doubts, contact another provider and tell them you want what you've been offered and see if they say it's manageable. Never be embarrassed to cross-check. This is a big investment and you want to know you're getting the best possible outcome. Remember to check out guarantees and servicing. I know if the worst happens and you need a replacement, some will give you like for like. Others will give you the most up-to-date tech at that time, which that makes really quite a difference because that will last you for a lot longer. Find out how long it takes to get someone out to assess a problem if it's needed and what the costs involved are. In this climate of high energy bills and environmental damage, solar is definitely the way to go if you can manage it. And having a battery means you can be more flexible with the energy you produce. It's good for your bank balance, good for the health of your home, and great for the planet. So please let me know if you've any questions, and I'd love to hear which way you decide to go and how it's working.